Welcome to everybody tuning in here. I am happy to be joined once again by my good friend here, James Mathewson, who was a former advisor in the UK Parliament for the Labour Party. And since he's now a broadcaster, he's a contributor to Sky News, BBC News, and he's just out here speaking truth to power on these airwaves. I see him all the time, always doing great work. Happy to have you, man.
Following your lead, man. Speaking truth to power. Inspired as always. The stuff the past few weeks, especially. I mean, since we did our last Substack Live, there's been so much happening. I mean, as there always is at the moment. But I've been inspired watching you over there, and especially around some of the stuff that we're going to talk about today, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, thank you as always, inspired by what you do across the pond there. But for those who are, just coming in, James, we want to do this more often to get a UK perspective on what's going on, a global perspective on what's happening here in the US. And especially, like you said, since we talked about Greenland last time we talked, that was before the Carney speech, that was before Davos, that was before so many things have happened. This was before Alex Preddy. I think, and we didn't really get into what happens with ICE, and those ramifications. So what I wanted to start with, we're going to get into obviously the broader liberal order, the liberal world's response to Donald Trump's ICE cruelty. But I think first you brought something to my attention before we popped on that was actually really fascinating to me, was that you're saying that the UK's right-wing Reform Party, you're seeing that they're praising ICE. I saw tweets in recent days. Some of their party members were praising ICE and now calling for a British ICE. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so it's been a situation for probably the best part of a year now, where you've had Conservative Party politicians. So your traditional Conservative Party in Britain, right, like the Republican Party, is the Conservative and Unionist Party of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, right? Bit of a mouthful, but it's the Conservatives, right? They're the Tories, as we call them. You've probably heard that word, many of you. But they, quite a few of them, had this kind of very, what I would call hard right approach to lots of things, especially immigration. And we saw them increasingly emboldened by the Trump administration, coming out and saying, we should copy this, we should do this. And ICE was one of those things. And what started happening is the Reform Party, created by Nigel Farage, who some of your viewers might recognize from being around Trump. He was at Trump rallies. He came over, he said, I think his quote was, he said that Trump was the bravest person he's ever met, and all the rest of that nonsense. So, he's been around. In Britain, he's known as a chancer, has been for years. He's somebody who backed, he was kind of very prominent in the Brexit, the EU referendum, making all sorts of promises that then obviously he holds his hands up and says, well, I'm not in power. I don't have to deliver them, He's that kind of guy.
Yeah.
But for years, there have been all sorts of allegations of racism and stuff from him. He's created this party, Reform, the Reform Party, from the die and ashes of the Brexit Party. And many of these Conservatives, these traditional Tories, are now crossing the floor and joining Reform. They're actually leaving the Tory Party and joining the Reform Party. And because of this, they're now free to say what they want in even more of a kind of explosive way. So you've got many of them saying that we should have a British ICE. And then you've got Reform councillors. This is the thing that breaks my heart, right? Like 18-year-olds, 19-year-old young men who are councillors in their local council, right? First kind of tier of elective politics in Britain. And they're standing up and saying, I stand with ICE. And this lad in particular was holding a sign up saying, I stand with ICE. It went viral, obviously, and people were saying this is outrageous. So people are upset about it and irritated. But the mainstream Conservative Party won't even call it out. They won't even criticize it because they want to ride that wave. They look at Trump and they get excited by it. They see that they could do the same thing here. And the thing that worries me most is people with my own politics will often say, well, that wouldn't happen here. We couldn't have that here. Britain's different to America. It's not as, there's not as many conspiracy theorists. All this. There is no difference. There is no difference that would stop that from happening here. It's just, 10, 15 years ago, conservatives in America wouldn't have thought that would happen there. and
No,
that's the
exactly. Yeah, and then
big
that's the parallel. And also, if you're watching, you're tuning in, we are giving a UK perspective on what's going on in American politics, the ramifications of the ICE cruelty, and kind of the parallels that we're seeing with the far right in the UK and the far right here. So stay tuned. Also, smash that like button while you're in here. Liberally hit the like button. I see you, Catherine. You're one of my favorite subscribers in here in the comments. Everybody, comment, ask questions. If you have thoughts or anything, throw them in the chat. Hit the like button. We need independent journalism to be supported because that's what I do. That's what James does, and we're trying to also collab across the pond too as well. Like have a UK US independent journalism collaborative, hopefully in the future, right?
building these bridges, isn't
Yeah,
it? And
building
trying
these
to
bridges.
share things, because the more that you share these experiences and stuff, the more that we're prepared. Because you have to find a way to counter this stuff. And
Exactly.
when the talking points are the same that come up from across the pond, because they're stealing them and vice versa, and they're
Yeah,
using them, then we should be able to counter it. And this is
exactly.
the ground level for starting that.
This is the way to do that. And on that note, to get back to the to what you were saying, I wanted to touch on those parallels you touched on because basically for those who are watching, it's the when you look at the Tories and the reform is as if, like, let's say the MAGA wing of the party split
Yeah,
off in the US and then was influencing the main Republican Party. And then you're seeing now people peel off from the Tories over to the reform. And that's
yeah,
what we ended up basically seeing effectively with the Republicans peeling off to MAGA, which is, but again,
exactly.
it's like over here, it's two-party system. So that's
Yeah,
the equivalent of what's happening there. So what James is outlining here is that in the Reform Party, they're praising ICE, they're far right radicals. Nigel Farage, it was one of those pioneers, or not pioneers. I hate to use that positive word. One of the
yeah,
advocates for Brexit, and then let the ruin and the rubble kind of go without him taking any accountability for what happened afterwards. But what we're seeing is similar parallels, and I think what we've definitely been grappling with is kind of the far right is a globally collaborative enterprise,
yeah.
and
And
that's
that's
what you're seeing.
people like Steve Bannon. I mean, Steve Bannon has been going around Europe for the past 2 years doing this. Since he's kind of gone quiet or quieter in America, he has been here and he has been rallying people. The AfD in Germany.
Mhm. Yep.
I mean, to think that you could have a far right neo-Nazi party in Germany, within 100 years of World War II. It's
Yep.
absolutely outrageous, and they're fully emboldened because our biggest protest by the far right was last year, and they mixed it with this weird sort of Christian nationalism, which we've never seen here before. Religion here is it's very kept out of politics. We are very
Mhm.
secular as a society over here, mainly because for 1,000 years we've been, kind of killing each other over it. So people kind of deliberately keep it out of the way. You will never hear politicians mention God, or very rarely will mention God. It's very different to America in that perspective. But for the first time ever, I'm seeing Christian nationalism on the rise. And you had priests and vicars, a lot of them excommunicated, but, kind of these radicals supporting these voices at this protest. One of them, a chap called Tommy Robinson, who
Yep.
actually, if people search his name, they will find he was mentioned in the Epstein files. The new tranche just came out
Yep.
because Steve Bannon and Epstein were talking about him and
Yep.
saying how good he is.
Yeah, we're gonna get to the Epstein stuff
Yeah,
in a
that's the
second as
crazy
well.
thing.
But to touch on that further, someone saying, "Hey, Patricia in the comments saying discuss Musk in Europe," and that's what I was going to talk about next. And
Yeah,
yes, dog, I see you in
dialed
there.
into that protest.
Also, yeah, yes, we're going to talk about the Epstein files as well in the future. So everyone, stay tuned. We're going to cover all these things you're throwing into the chat. But yes, Elon Musk was in there. We obviously saw him boosting the AFD. At Rant, the startup I was running with. We had a partnership with the Center for Analysis of the Radical Right, which was based in the UK. So we were always covering these rising far right extremist parties, groups, and we see Musk basically go and boost this pretty, verging on, there's some neo Nazis among that coalition. It's a really
100%.
far right movement in Germany, and it's horrible. And we're seeing, so Musk has gone over there. Musk is on social media constantly advocating for these white supremacist ideas. This great replacement theory is not just about white people being replaced in the U.S. they always talk about Europe as some cautionary tale of how all these brown people invaded Europe, and therefore
Yeah.
there must be this purging of them. And that's where now it leads to this, some people in the Reform Party calling for a British ICE. So you're seeing some positive, feedback to ICE among the far right there, but also on the flip side of that, there's a backlash.
Yeah.
The broader liberal world uh, is basically post this. So in the UK? Are you seeing? I know I saw you giving commentary about Renee Good's killing, Alex
Yeah.
Preddy. I see you on Sky News. You're always doing great work on BBC as well. And are you seeing? Is it just you're not just a lone voice out there? Everyone is pretty appalled by this, right?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing that gets me about politics at the moment is because people are in their own bubbles. Everyone always thinks people are agreeing with them and all the rest of it. So I'm always cautionary to kind of try and keep outside of just my bubble. And of course, friends and family and people tend to be people who you agree with anyway. But I do think that generally, the response to ICE in America, in Britain, has been one of horror. And
Mm-hmm.
to then see the response from people who have said we should have that here, um, even if they say, "Oh, it wouldn't be like that. It wouldn't be as violent. It wouldn't be this and that and all the rest of it." That there is this complete rejection, I think, among the general British public because they don't want to see that happen. You have a few people who say because our big challenge with immigration here is small boats, right? That's the
Yeah.
big debate right now, and this is because small boats. So you're talking like dinghies, right, and inflatable life rafts leave France, where there is obviously a connection to mainland Europe, and they will come across and they'll try and land on a beach in Britain. And once you put your feet on British soil, you can claim asylum, right? That's a human right. I
Yeah.
couldn't care less how anybody does that. I don't want them to do that. Obviously, I want them to come through safe channels. I don't want them to drown in the French and English Channel because it's dangerous, and that's what happens. But you have a handful of people saying, "Shoot the dinghies, blow them up. We don't care. We want them stopped." But the majority of people have just been led down this path of somehow illegal, or this idea of illegal status means that you can withdraw somebody's human rights. You can treat them
Yeah.
completely different because of that. But I do still think beneath that, and I know you feel this with even some of the MAGA people and all the rest of it, just beneath that, if you get to a level of understanding, then some of these people just do not know the fundamental basics of how we've built our society over the last 80 years. The basic principle of immigration and refugee status. They just want that pulled away because they believe that the problems they're facing, which are all financial, they're usually economic, are all to do with this influx of people, and it's not.
Exactly. And for those who are watching, keep smashing the like button. We see you. You have unlimited likes. Support independent journalism. Now we have Transatlantic Independent Journalism Alliance here, me and James. So we're going to keep pushing back on all this ethno-nationalism that we see. Also comment, ask questions. I think we might have a potential troll in the comments this time. Usually we don't, but I think there's someone in
Lovely.
there that might be causing up some stuff. So feel free to contribute in there and push back on anything you see. But what I will say is, yes, you're spot on. And that same playbook of this fear, we kind of saw. Remember the Greece, the migrant crisis, that where basically there was all
Yeah.
these boats arriving in Greece, and that was kind of the start leading up to Brexit, right? And then, especially during basically Syria, it was a Syria migrant crisis that was causing these boats to arrive. And then we saw this rising ethno-nationalism at that time, and then now it's just continued. And again, it's like, just if anyone pick up a history book, these people might as well wear I am a neo-Nazi, I am a nationalist T-shirt, and like I'm a con man. Like it's so very transparent that they are reusing and relitigating the xenophobic tactics that we saw throughout the early 1900s. And it's just the
Yeah.
same playbook over and over again. And then now we're seeing this kind of convergence because after the Southern strategy, after the civil rights movement with Nixon and the Republican Party kind of playing to that with those undertones, welfare queen, and basically spending years laying the groundwork for Trump to arrive, and then accelerated and Newt Gingrich and all that. We can get into those details, but then basically Trump comes and amplifies on that, and there's just this really stupid base instinct fear that gets easily played into by these demagogues of these brown people are to blame for your economic woes, not
Yeah.
us giving tax cuts to the rich. Us as meaning the Republican Party, right? Not like they're speaking to their base, saying blame the brown people, not our are inequitable economic policies. And that's the
Exactly.
same
Yeah.
tactic that we see in the UK. It's the same tactic we see everywhere. It's a distraction tactic. And unfortunately, it works every damn time on a sizable percentage of the population because fear of the other is a very base instinct to appeal to, and yet we still see it happening.
Yeah. All the time. And it's a shame, isn't it, that we can't learn from it. I mean, more and more people do learn from it and have learned from it, but there's just this swathe of people in society, no matter what country it is on earth, who believe that there is limited something, and therefore, if there's limited something, there's a threat to somebody taking it away from you. Now, those people aren't wrong. There is limited things, but I tell you, who's got who you should be looking at about it? The people who've got billions of those things. If we're talking about currency, or if we're talking about resources, who's got it all? Who's got more than they would ever need in a lifetime or a million lifetimes? People like Elon Musk. Why are
Mhm.
they then trying to get you to look at people who have nothing and say, oh, by the way, you might want to worry about them. You should probably look at them. They're coming into your country and taking things from. They're not a threat. They're not taking anything from you. I will never understand. It's the same with benefits. We get this in the British media constantly. The line about welfare and benefits, because we have a very strong welfare system here and a welfare state, and have done for, well, since it was pioneered in the early 1900s. If you read Charles Dickens at all, you'll see the groundwork being laid for why you need that system in place and why you need to be able to uplift people from poverty. But this line that comes out time and time again is, oh well, somebody next door to you, they might not be working as hard as you. You're
Yeah.
working hard for your money. What if they're not? I couldn't care less how hard you perceive someone is working. Do you think Elon Musk works hard? Do you think Elon Musk worked harder than my mother when she was doing two cleaning jobs at the same time? No, he doesn't, right? It's a different thing altogether. And to then jump back and forth as they do between pegging someone's value to how hard they can work and contribute to something, and then all of a sudden be like, oh, well, no, he's a genius. He's entitled to whatever he wants. It's absolutely maddening. And I think if we fall for that, we have to find a way to counter that narrative that's hopeful rather than just negative, because we either have a society or we don't. You either do these things collectively or you don't.
No, exactly, and those in the comments, also feel free to ask us questions too. I know you guys are
Yeah, please.
beating back a potential troll in the comments as well. But hey, hit us up, throw some questions our way. You talk past that individual, and we can get things going. Also, hit the like button, keep smashing it, and subscribe if you have not yet. We are doing transatlantic independent journalism here. We have James Mathewson over there in the UK holding it down, BBC Sky News contributor. I'm over here in Brooklyn. We're over here just trying to figure this out. And
Brooklyn
honestly,
to Edinburgh. I'm gonna put my hat on as well, mate, because
yeah, we're representing.
I'm here. I'm gonna put my hat on. There we go.
Now
Because
you looking like a Brooklynite now.
do I look like I'm in Brooklyn
You
now?
look like you're in Brooklyn now. Look at you. You're about to go to the bodega. You're about to grab a coffee. That's what we need.
I
Yeah.
wish I had a bodega on my street. I tell you.
Yeah, it is. It's wild over here. The snow is crazy, but yeah, I mean, definitely subscribe if you've not subscribed yet to James. He's doing great work, and also consider becoming a paid subscriber to my journalism as well, or James over here. So yes, I'm glad we got to this part of it because I feel like this is the thing underneath it all, where it's like, of course, the reason why there's even a populist, or I wouldn't even call it populist because it's fake populism, but the reason why there is even a right wing desire for an ICE, maybe a British ICE or ICE we have here, is because of the biggest lie that the far right's ever told, which is this lie that migrants or brown people are to blame for your economic woes. And it's a total distraction, and basically it's self-fulfilling because what they end up doing is create the inequities that they then
Yeah.
exploit. They create policy that disproportionately benefits the rich. We now have the K-shaped economy, poor is getting poorer, rich is getting richer.
Yeah.
And then as a result of that, you have people who are living in fear and who are living paycheck to paycheck and become superstitious. And then if you play to those superstitions, you can scapegoat these immigrants, and you can scapegoat these other groups of people. And that's the same playbook happening across the planet, time and time again. Hitler did it with Jewish people. They always blame the small percent. That they blame the people without power, the people who don't have the largest representation, and they scapegoat them. And we're seeing that
Exactly the
here in the
same.
U.S.
Exactly the same with the threat of them. And the big thing here that's changed, right? 1960s, 1970s, it was Indians, it was Pakistanis, it was like anybody who came here. It was the Windrush generation before that. It was anybody who was black or Afro Caribbean, and now it's Muslims. Now it's
Yep.
Islam, right? And what they mean when they say Muslims is a really interesting thing, actually, because none of them stop to ask, because that's a religion, and none of them stop to ask about how many times a day those people are praying, or they never stop to inquire about the religion or whatever, if they believe in God. It's about them viewing brown people as Muslims and as other and as some
Yes.
kind of Islamic thing. And the reason why that's so powerful is because they're plugging into something that was already established in the early 2000s, which was the post 9/11, the post 7/7 here,
Yep.
any of the terrorist attacks, all of that stuff. And they plug it into security, and they're like, do you really want Muslims coming here? Because Muslims equate terrorism. And that was the line we saw from the Bush administration. It was the line we saw with all Dick Cheney's handiwork and all of that stuff whilst they pillaged the Middle East. So all of these people are now blamed. And I fundamentally believe that's part of the reason they're able to dehumanize the people of Gaza, right? Because they're
100%.
able
Yeah.
to say they're part of the same group of people, these
Yes.
undesirables, and you don't want them here.
Exactly.
And the comment,
Exactly.
you've got to comment, one of the trolls who's come in, that person's fallen for a narrative that's been put out in America about Britain, right? They'll say that Britain's overrun by Muslims and that
Yeah.
London in particular is some kind of hellhole, right? London, there's nothing wrong with London. Knife crime is at the
Exactly.
lowest it's ever been in London right
It's
now.
it's 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 nonsense, and I'm glad you brought that up because that same individual, I don't wanna name them, I don't give them any additional clout because this recording is
Yeah,
gonna go out, and, but what I was this person, they just contradicted themselves, so and it actually expands on our thing. Right here, one of the recent comments from this person says, "No one gives a F about race anymore, you guys need to give it a rest," or, basically, no one's bigoted, and then earlier on, said that Muslims are overrunning the UK. So you're the one that cares about race, and the thing is,
literally.
and like you said, it's a label of Islam, but it's not
Yeah.
about the religion because I get called a Muslim every day just
Mhm.
because my name is Ahmed Baba, and
Yeah.
yet I am not Muslim at all. Not, I mean, it's a great religion. My dad's a Muslim, my mom's Christian.
Yeah.
I've studied all religions. I'm more just spiritual, and I don't really buy into any organized religion because I think it could, you know, um, it's not for me.
Yeah.
But I get called that every day just because of my name. So it's not about the actual practice of the religion, it's about othering individuals. It's
Of course
about
it is. And it
othering.
comes down to skin color. When
Yes.
you boil it down, I do this with these people when I debate them, right? You boil it down, you boil it down, you boil it down, and you get to the core, and you can see them getting uncomfortable when they get close to the truth because they don't want to think that they're racist. They don't want to. They have to be able to tell themselves they have legitimate concerns like security or resources or something like this. They'll often say things like, "Oh well, I would love to help everyone. I would love to help everyone, but that's not the reality." Right? Or that's not how it works. There's a reason Donald Trump is obsessed with the mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, right? And you can probably just tell it's because of
I mean,
Sadiq Khan called Sadiq Khan. Like, it's like
the name
Sadiq Khan,
itself, yeah.
exactly, like, is a Muslim and is a Muslim mayor of one of the biggest cities in Europe, right? And look, people have complaints about Sadiq Khan. Many of them are about which roads he closes and fixing potholes and things. Legitimate, right? Hold your politicians to account on everything. But Sadiq Khan is not part of some global conspiracy to bring other Muslims that he's never met because he's British and has never left Britain. Here, they think there's like it's very similar to like the kind of McCarthyism around communism, in the 50s and 60s, around like there's some kind of idea that they're connected to a foreign entity, even if they're British born, even if they could be as British as you like.
Yes.
And yeah, unfortunately, because they are of that culture and of that heritage, they will never be viewed as being British. That's racist. It's fundamentally racist.
It's fundamentally racist, and it's essentially a way to tie this, they try to frame a religion that's got really bad, branding, I'd say, since 9/11, even though it's a peaceful religion, in its essence, but they try to take it and extrapolate it, and, we saw the same thing, with MLK. Anyone who's a freedom fighter who's fighting for real rights, Hoover spied,
Yeah, yeah,
ferociously on him, and it was trying to tie the entire black movement to communism, the
exactly.
pro-black, civil rights movement, and it's the same again. This is why it gets frustrating for those of us in objective reality, because if and you pick up any history book or have any sense, and don't let yourself get exploited by nonsense, you can see very clearly that again, it's repetitive.
Mhm.
It's like history doesn't rhyme, but the tactics do.
Yeah,
Or history doesn't repeat itself. It rhymes, and the tactics do exactly actually repeat themselves. They're
yeah,
cyclical.
exactly.
These are identical tactics, and that's why I say Donald Trump might as well wear "I am a con man" demagogue on his shirt, because
Yeah.
he's literally from the second he came down, or even before that, when I saw the birtherism stuff with Obama, I never
Oh
liked
God,
it.
yeah.
I never liked him. I also never thought he was cool before that, even The Apprentice. But then saw the
Like
birtherism.
anybody didn't, who
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
could tell he was a creep.
Yeah, and then he does the Obama birtherism thing, and then he comes on the escalator, and says Mexicans are rapists. Right then and there, I'm out. I'm like, okay, he's doing the exact same tactics that every single demagogue, without fail, has done. And
Yeah,
it's frustrating when you watch good-hearted people. I grew up in Virginia, repeat it all the time. Some people I know, love,
yeah.
back this maniac, and it's hard to like reconcile the good people with these horrible decisions. And
Also,
on that note, sorry, what were you gonna say?
no, I was just going to say, of course it is, because that they are the people that we interact with on the ground level, right? The people that we have to have these conversations. Donald Trump doesn't have to answer anyone. Donald Trump can say what he wants, and then he'll only see people who agree with him for the next 3 weeks, right? We have to have these flashpoints. We have to be in a taxi when a taxi driver says, "What about all these, brown bastards and such and so?" And you sit there and you think, like, what do I do in that situation? What I've just started doing is, I'm sorry, I won't back down from any challenge like that, because if somebody says something around me, then you have to correct them, because it starts at that level, right? Yes, it's top
Yeah,
down. Of course, it's the example is set by people in power, but on the ground, we have to really challenge everything we hear. And I've been
yeah.
in 2 taxis in the past year where I've said, "Stop the car, pal." Like, I'm getting out. I'm not. I'm
That's
not.
what I'm see,
Like,
that's the real shit, James.
you have to
That's
hit
the
them
real
where it
shit.
hurts.
And coming
If
from a
that guy
white
goes,
person, like,
"No,
just
of
quickly, I
course it
had to
does."
say, like, the reason why someone's saying that to you is because they see they see a white person, they think, okay, maybe I can say this horrible, horrific, racist thing to them, and when you push back, it breaks. It's not
You
like
you
me
know it
pushing
yourself.
back.
You know yourself as a man in circles when other men
Oh
will talk
yeah,
about in a certain way, because if it's a changing room, it's a locker room, if it's if
I
they're
played
in a
football.
space,
Trust me, I know.
yeah, and where you're in a space where they feel emboldened and they'll say something. And if you in that moment go, yeah, because you don't want the confrontation, or you think, I'm not wasting my time on you. And I used to do that, but now I'm just like, nah, man, what are you on about? Don't you dare
Yes.
say shit like that in front of me, because we've got to hold people to account. And if we don't, it just lets them get away. And the things that are unsaid, that's the other thing people need to remember. Do you imagine how much? Because normally with former administrations of the US government, right, we will only find out the truly horrific things they've been doing years later, or once
Yeah.
they're out of, right? Once the books come out, once everybody gets their story out and tries to distance themselves from it. The stuff we are seeing now, when there's gonna be so much worse down the line. I mean, the way that the Trump family are enriching themselves off the back of the
Mm.
American people right now, just all out corruption, that will be, I mean, colossal when it drops, when people actually, when the whole thing comes tumbling down, people start distancing themselves and they say, "Oh, I was in a room when he did this and such and such." And, when that happens, but to see it for what it is right now is a gift to people, really. And the fact that they've still seen that and then gone, you know what? I'm sticking with it. It's
Yeah,
oh,
exactly. And on that, yeah, that point with the we're gonna learn so much about the crypto. Like we don't even know, like you don't it's not publicly available who's investing, that you can't track a lot of these payments. So we're gonna find out. the whole thing was potentially, well, not potentially, we're already seeing it in plain view, but just a big bribery scheme, just a pay for play. How many decisions, also how many poly market, Kalshi, the betting stuff we've seen. I saw Caroline Levitt, literally ended, she like looked up at the clock and then ended her presser like abruptly so that it was like literally timed with this really big bet on Kalshi and poly market. And it's like how much insider training, because now you can bet on reality, how much crypto is directly influencing Donald Trump's um, decision making, and it's again the most blatant, transparently corrupt administration in American history, and it's going to be horrible down the line. And you're right, people like again when the stupor breaks, which it will, and it is, people are going to look back and feel immense guilt, hopefully, and
Hopefully.
if not, I know in the future, because sense always prevails eventually. None of these type of regimes last. People are going to be looking back and maybe asking their grandparents what they were doing, right? And I used to read about the 1900s and be like, wow, like I don't know how this is possible. It was almost like an unimaginable movie where it was like, it was like Avengers, it was like an Avengers movie. It was fiction. It was like there's no way that
Yeah.
it's like if Thanos had, you've seen the Avengers, right? Of course, you're a Marvel fan. Yeah.
Hope
It's
that.
like if
Yeah.
okay, great. So we can talk on that level. It's like if Thanos had a legion of supporters on Earth that were like, yes,
Yeah, exactly.
go
Like
wipe out half the
welcome Thanos.
universe. That's the
Yeah.
one part of it that was inaccurate. That's one part of it that wasn't realistic. I guess they didn't show
Was
the
how everyone
millions.
unified.
Yeah, they didn't. Yeah,
Yeah.
they didn't show the millions of people that backed Thanos. But
Exactly.
like what we're seeing is that what we saw in the 1900s is like people backed atrocities, but also
Mm.
during Nazi Germany, people didn't know openly that it was happening while it was happening to Jews, right? Like
Exactly. Yeah.
they knew that they were getting taken away, and they would lie to the public and say they were being taken to these sometimes re-education camps, sometimes they refer to them as work camps or
Yeah.
whatever. And then word starts getting out, and then you start seeing some of the German people being repulsed by it. But it's like
Yeah.
right now they're shooting people in the face in public.
Exactly. And
You
when the
know, like
Allies invaded some of these camps, they brought German villagers and townspeople from local towns because they knew the camps were there. They just, they turned a blind eye to them. They didn't know what was happening to them. They didn't want to know.
yeah,
So, they brought them through and made them walk through and see everything. And, that still lives among the German consciousness collectively as a people. Then to have Elon Musk dialing into a protest in Germany and saying the words, "You shouldn't be ashamed of your history," to those people who should be ashamed of their history. I'm British, I should be ashamed of my history. Yeah, of course, there's amazing things. Like, I'm proud of my grandfather was a farmer during World War II. He couldn't even leave the country. He couldn't sign up. He went to 6 different places to try and sign up. And he was a farmer. He saw German bombers flying overhead to Glasgow every night.
mm,
All of these things that people went through. I'm immensely proud of so many aspects of my history. Americans should be so proud of many aspects of their history. But you cannot for 1 second believe that you stand with the people who stormed the beaches of Normandy, or the people who drove Sherman tanks, or the people who flew B-51 bombers, all of these people that liberated Europe from tyranny and the tyranny of the Nazis. You cannot possibly say that you stand with them and support this current administration when it
exactly.
emulates exactly what that did.
No, that is spot on, and it's so important because I've been thinking a lot about this, especially when I just did that MLK speech at the Wisconsin Capitol. As you know, I was prepping for that, and when I was thinking about it, doing the research, just reading everything about MLK, and reading about I read a whole biography of him. I read every speech I could, and it's just like it kind of
Your speech was,
revitalized.
by the way, man. Your
Oh,
speech was out the day. Like, I
thank you.
watched it. It was incredible. I was getting fired up
Oh,
sitting
thank
on
you, thank you.
the train.
Appreciate you, man. Yeah, I mean, it was a long speech. They asked for 23 minutes, but like, I was like, I'm not just going to sit here and just give platitudes. Like, y'all going to get a history lesson. And what it talks about is like, what I've really come away with, and my stance before this is just that like the fact that Black people still love this country when it didn't love them is the same reason why we should love and embrace all of our history in
Yeah,
spite of the horrible things we did, because it's our ability to bounce back from that. The redemption, the repeated redemption and repeated refounding of America that makes it
yeah.
remarkable, right? It's what makes me love this country is that we are able to look at the horrible, horrific things we did, look at the contradictions of the founders themselves, who were both brilliant men but had massive blind spots, and many of them were abolitionists. Alexander Hamilton, abolitionist. Benjamin Franklin, the final piece of writing before he died was an abolitionist piece of writing, and it's like there's contradictions within them, but they gave us the framework to free
Yeah,
ourselves, and we see that's why you can't shy away from this history because if you embrace what you've done and then reject it and teach it, you can learn. Look at Germany. What Germany did, it is now a bastion of democracy in a lot of ways. In some cases, more so than America at this particular moment, given Donald. And
yeah,
it's like they're on the other side of the free world, and we're the ones now that are being kind of viewed as an adversary on the
yeah.
world
Of course,
stage. So
that
that's
uplift
why
ground.
exactly. So that's why we have to reckon with the history, and that's why you have to teach it and repeat it. And sure,
Yeah,
some demographics might feel a little guilty. I would too
yeah.
if I found out my grandpa ran a
Please do.
plantation. I get it, and
Yeah,
maybe that's healthy, and maybe that's good, and then maybe that'll inspire people to then push America forward and push the world forward. So I'm hoping, and that's what Elon Musk only. I think it's collapsing. I just want to say, like we have this now. So just to tie it all together now, we could talk Epstein next time. I think we kind of hit on something cool here, just this broader ethno-nationalist,
right.
far
Yeah.
right collaborative movement. But I think it's collapsing.
There's so much going on with him. I mean, the thing is, just when you were talking there, it really struck me that we don't live a long time as individuals. We have a very short lifespan, really. In many ways, it can span huge changes and huge developments. I mean, if you think about people who were born in the early 1900s, who lived at the same time as the Titanic went down and then saw the same iPhone, kind
Yeah,
of, but then people, that's the
insane.
span of time. It's incredible. We're very lucky in many ways, but the other thing is, we don't live that long as the tides of history change. So, there are only certain key events that will happen in our lifetimes. And when you talk about those founding fathers of America, one thing that's very clear to them was their own mortality and their limited time to do things. It's the same with anyone who wants to change anything. You have a baton that you have to pass on. And in many
Yes.
ways, what you do is you do what you can and you leave the world in a way that you want to be able to pass on so that people can make the changes and keep it going and keep it going further. As MLK said, that arc of history, it needs to keep going.
Yeah.
Um, but right now, what we're seeing is people desperately, desperately try to roll back on things
Yep.
because they're terrified that it could just what get better. I don't know what the think it is where you think I'm going to cling to these traditional values or I'm going to try and hang on to the world as it was, and I wanted to go back the way because it wasn't better for anyone back the way. By the way, not just black people, not just people of color. It wasn't better for the average white person back then to think
Yeah.
that when
It's
subjugated and starving. It's madness.
it's so many components to it. There's nostalgia, everyone, it's why everyone dislikes their favorite artist's new album and misses their old album because the old album actually just wants you to transport you back to your childhood or a previous
Yeah,
time in your life. And it's like there's a nostalgia people have for the past that where it taints what actually was happening. And when you talk this backlash cycle, it is, I'll just be upfront and straight about it. It is every time there's black or brown movements or progress or gains in rights, there's immense backlash.
yeah,
After Reconstruction, black people actually got, 2,000 black officials were elected, and then there's that
yeah,
violent backlash, and then there's the erosion. Then there's Jim Crow South rises in its wake, and it's like the same thing's happening here on a global scale because it's like now, black and brown people are getting, we had Barack Obama, right? Like you forget how big of a deal that was to have like
right,
maybe one of our most articulate and intelligent presidents of all time be a black man and be in and like in demeanor like have like the demeanor of Lincoln. Like I'm not comparing him
yeah,
to like
yeah.
because I still think Lincoln was the best president of all time, but like to be able to just be that calm of a person and represent the best of us, it scared a lot of people. And
Oh,
I
this is
think and I think there's the same underlying fear that gets played to is that when black and brown people have power, they might do to
yeah.
white people what white people did to
Worry
them,
about retribution,
or
retribution.
retribution because it's only natural because there was so much evil wrought
Yeah,
throughout history, by those people in power. And it's not just exclusively white people. Obviously, there was other, there's
Yeah.
people in Egypt that enslaved, the Jews, for example. It's not. But my point is overall is that when it comes to modern history, that is something that has always been a fear, an articulate fear. Like I was reading stuff in the civil rights era, people were articulating that they were afraid if black people got power or voting rights,
Yeah.
or that they would then take power and then subjugate white people. That was like an active, open, conversational fear they were having.
Oh yeah, we still have to talk about it here. I mean, I remember 2008. My best friend at school went on a holiday to Florida, and I was from quite an area, where it was mixed incomes and stuff. But not many of my pals went abroad for a holiday. It cost quite a lot of money. But he'd been to Florida and he'd been to Disney World and everything. So when he came back in like middle school, he gave a talk to our class about what it was like being in America at the exact moment that Barack Obama was elected, because he was there during the election and everything. And he said it was phenomenal. And, this is a white family from rural Northumberland on the Scottish borders, right, who just happened to be there and saw it. And his mother was in floods of tears over it because it was such a moment and she thought it represented the future. Finally, you would see a change around the world. And I think the lesson from it for all of us is, regardless of what your opinion is of Obama politically, you cannot compare. You just cannot compare where we are currently with that step forward. And
Exactly.
I think people need to be always aware that it will roll backwards. And I'm here, like outside my window. I'm in a building that's 300 years old, right? I mean, I'm a building that's older than America, and all of our buildings on this street. Some beautiful buildings in Edinburgh, especially in the city centre and Old Town. And American tourists come, and you can see the disappointment on their face when tour guides will tell them there's a reason it's so nice and why everything's so, all these incredible buildings were built. Were built off the back of slavery. Scotland, as part of the, in its own right, but as part of the UK especially, was a huge contributor to the slave trade. The difference is here, we didn't let the slaves come here. They kept them away. They kept them in the colonies. They kept them in the Caribbean. They did things like they did all the heinous acts out of the side
Elsewhere, and then but then they
west,
profited from it.
and they brought the put it here. Now, fast forward, hundreds of years later in the 1950s, when Jamaican people who speak, fluent English for some reason and nobody can understand, are like, hang on, I want to come and I want to enjoy, I'm part of the Commonwealth. I want to come in and enjoy the wealth of Britain. And they get here and they become nurses and they become the backbone of our economy. And then you've got people saying, I don't want them here. I don't like the look of them. I don't like the smell of their food. I don't like their culture.
Yeah, and it's
That lack of knowledge of that thread of history and how it works will never cease to amaze me, that some people can't understand it.
and the thing is, it's just so true. And again, I know we've hit this hump where we now have all this access to information in the world, but there's so much disinformation. The way the technology's evolved has been so rapid that the human brain hasn't been able to fully like acclimate to it. But I think like over time we're going to get to a place where I'm still optimistic. So like overall, I think
Yeah,
all of this access to information is going to bolster us. I think we're going to have media literacy become more of a core class throughout everyone's life, that keeps people adept to the digital evolutions that we're undergoing. And
yeah,
I do think there's going to be more of an attempt to bolster this history and knowledge of people, because I do think I think that's already been happening. And I think when you have such we're lucky Donald Trump's administration is so incompetent and idiotic, as idiotic and incompetent as they are depraved, or maybe more so, is because they're doing it so out in the open and they lied in our faces. Like, thank God for Christy Nome being just a fool. Like if it was anyone else in that job, maybe they would have been able to lie a little better. But to lie
yeah.
in our faces, call Alex Preddy a domestic terrorist when we all saw him saving a woman. Renee Good, who was clearly turning away, calling her a domestic terrorist. Again, this stuff it repulses our moral cores. And I
It
just
does.
think,
It does.
and I think it's repulsed people in the UK, it's repulsed people here, and it's all crumbling. Like again, this is all. That's why I'm not afraid. I was a little shook last week when my friend Don Lemon got arrested. I was really really
Stuff with
angry, but
Dawn.
I've talked to he's happy now, and because none of it's all a fugazi. It's all an attempt to intimidate and scare us, because they are
It is.
crumbling and they're flailing and they're about to get absolutely like destroyed. Like it's going to make the Watergate in 2018 wins by liberals look
Yeah.
quaint. they're gonna get
But you,
absolutely decimated electorally this year,
but
and
with the
then we'll start
Don
rolling it
Lemon
back.
stuff, I mean, you know, how did you feel? Because like obviously you're good friends with Don, and you know, I watch, I watch Don, I watch his stuff, and I think he's brilliant. I think he's amazing. And it made me, you know, there's a moment where you're like, oh shit, my head's above the parapet. Like, oh shit, like this starts, you know, it doesn't make you want to back down. I certainly know it wouldn't make you want to back down, but how do you feel? Do you know what I mean? Because like it does make you worry, doesn't it? And you're out there, you're saying the same things, you're friends with them. It must have been even just as a friend to see another friend go through that. It must have
Yeah,
been difficult.
yeah. I mean, for those who don't know, I do a weekly Substack live with Don since mid last year. And I was furious. My first reaction was furious. And if anyone watched my live last week, I was uncharacteristically just popping off because I'm usually a calm guy. And I was furious because I just knew they were trying to make an example of him. And then once I've seen him, afterwards, hearing from him and, seeing him on these lives and seeing him do a show and he's totally like, he's unfazed, and he knows these charges aren't going to stick. But I was just so furious that they would, like the idiocy of it. They're trying to make an
Yeah,
example of him. He offered to turn himself in, and then they come and they just handcuffed him in the lobby of a hotel, trying to embarrass and scare us into not reporting on what the Trump administration is doing. And again, this was actually a shot at the bow at independent journalism because he already has kind of cowed a lot of corporate media. Got Barry Weiss turning CBS into whatever she's turning it into. Fox News is already on board. CNN, MS Now, fortunately, are still doing high quality work, in my opinion. I know there's CNN differing opinions about that, but I still appear on both, and I think they're doing good work. But he's trying to scare independent journalists because Don Lemon has the resources to be rep by Abby Lowell. I don't. Others may
yeah.
not, right? So
Georgia Ford,
Georgia Fort, Georgia
Catherine mentioned here in the comments. Yeah,
yeah,
Georgia
Georgia
Ford.
Fort, these other people these other journalists that they arrested. And again, I think it's trying to scare all of us. And that's why, we're about to wrap up here in a second, but that's why you have to support independent journalism. And it's not
Yeah,
just a call for like, to back us, please, yes, subscribe to me and James here. And if you can, become a paid subscriber because, although a lot of these other people are, a lot of the high profile ones, they were already millionaires before they started as independent journalists. Like we're just over here, we're young. Me and James are both in our early 30s, like trying to
yeah.
do this and, support all independent journalism because one of the things I've been thinking a lot about and we get to, I'm glad I don't have a hard stop. So if you have a few more minutes,
I'm good, man. I'm good.
because one of the things I've just been thinking about is just like how do we build a grassroots collaborative to support all independent journalists, like not just a few? Because when I look at the Kamala campaign in 2024, she raised $1 billion, a lot of it from grassroots, and then it just went nowhere, right? Like
Yeah,
obviously it was a valiant effort, and I respect what their campaign tried to do, but there's nothing. It's gone. Right? We
yeah.
spend on TV ads and stuff. On off year election, like if even a fraction of that,
Oh
like
God, yeah,
even if 10% of that went to independent journalism, do you know how huge that would
yeah,
be? And it's like people donate to campaigns, and that's great. But
yeah,
in order to create an actual infrastructure to take on right wing media ecosystems that are just they are fully funded by Republicans. I also get asked to do. I get more requests for sponsored content from right wing. I get
yeah. That,
this
yeah,
company called the Right Wing Naturals. They tried to get me to sell their supplements or something. There's more money in the right.
yeah.
If
Of
if
course,
if I wanted to go make money, I would just be like, you know what, Donald has a point, and I'm just
yeah,
go
yeah.
become a black conservative, right? Because that's where all the money actually is. But if
Of
you want
course
to
there
be
is.
a good person and do pro democracy work, for
Mhm.
some reason, there are no liberal billionaires out here trying to support this
No,
infrastructure. So what I'm trying
all
to
the
think about
time about
now, yes, but
George, you
yeah,
know,
for all the
all
credit with
the
George Soros, he's not there. So
where's
what I'm
he?
trying to think
Where's
about
he when
now,
I need him?
yeah, yeah. So what I'm trying to think about now is how do we create something that can channel a massive grassroots, uh, basically donor network or subscription network that journalists can join to potentially like just fund a massive wave of independent journalists instead of all these separate organizations. And I'm just trying to figure that out. I've just been doing some early thinking on it. I
Yeah,
used to run a startup And now I'm just doing things on my own. But I miss being a part of running an organization. So I don't
Yeah,
know, just some thoughts, just some casual thoughts. And for
we
those of
should
you
do it, man.
who are in the
We should
comments,
create
like
it.
yeah, like
You know?
I think people should, and there's already some people doing like Marlon Weems, is a great guy
Yeah.
who's creating a collaborative here on Substack. But like I'm also just been thinking bigger, like not just for like I don't know, just thinking bigger, maybe creating a platform because I also build apps. So like just
Yeah.
thinking about it. Yeah, D Batiste, he said Rant Media was the bomb. She remembers Rant Media. Yeah, yeah. I've just been thinking a lot about what to do. So we'll see. But if you are watching, one thing you can do is not just back, hopefully become paid subscribers to me and James, but also support other independent media, not just the big dogs that are already millionaires. Support and yes, but please do keep supporting Don and some of these others, but like also include in that those who are trying to rise, those who are also trying to create their own way, because that's how you create a resilient, massive ecosystem. Because he can't hit all of us.
No.
He can't whack a mole all independent journalists, right? So I've just been thinking a lot about that. And I hope we can figure something out, man, because you're doing big work in the UK.
No, you too, man. I mean, I would love to be part of something like that internationally. You know, we need to, and I've long said it. I've long said it. There should be a we should be able to freeze these charlatans out by using the truth. Now, when we use the truth and we use standards and we regulate ourselves and make sure that we're holding ourselves to a higher standard than they ever would, right? Let's be honest. Anyway, we should be able to use that to our advantage. There should be a charter. There should be a charter for political commentators that signs up to respect the truth, stand by fact, stand by all those things, because none of those people would be able to sign it. None of the right wing ones would be able to even, be part of something like that because they would be immediately struck off from it. So, signing up to something like that can then generate income, generate funds to be able to support people who are coming up through the political commentary route and doing that, because it's not a well-trodden path over here.
Yeah.
It's more well-trodden over there, but strangely enough, it pays over here and it doesn't pay that well over there, which is always astonishing.
Yeah, that's
It,
another thing. That's another aspect too. Like you get paid for appearances
yeah,
on those big channels. I go on, CNN and MSNBC and News Nation. I've gone on over 50 times to all these networks in the last year.
yeah,
You don't get paid for these appearances. I hope people don't know that.
maybe,
Unless you get a contributor contract, which I might in the future.
yeah.
Hopefully, that would be cool. But what I'm saying is like the media here is a lot, like you said, it's more guaranteed pay over there. But yeah, I really just think there's some interesting ideas there. And we're gonna do this more often. I think we could do it at the very
Yeah.
least bi-weekly, the
I
very
would love that,
least,
man. Let's do it.
and then
I
hopefully
mean,
we could do
the feedback
the
in the comments is
no, the
great. And
comments have been popping off.
this troll, there's a troll in there. I'm not going to say the name. There's a troll who has been here the whole time, right?
Thank
So
you
all I
so
would say
much.
to you, yeah, thanks, man, and
Really
thanks for
appreciate you watching.
generating the engagement. But what I would say to anyone engaging with him in there is, don't be put off by this guy. This guy's got nowhere else to be than listening to us tonight. Would you be sat on some right wing Substack Live listening in and commenting to everyone and getting wound up? No, because you've got a life. And at the end of the day, these people are just driven by their anger and their hatred. I want the best for you, man. I really do, whoever you are. But at the end of the day, it's a very sad and a very depressing state of affairs when that's how you get your entertainment. So we rise above it. We'll continue doing this. And I think our conversations, they really do energize me for the weeks after that we have them. I feel inspired and I feel hopeful.
Yeah, no, appreciate you, man. Honestly, I think again. Let's do this again next week.
Next week, let's do
1 p.m.
Epstein. Unless something
Yeah.
else,
Yeah.
God
We'll
knows
probably
what
talk
else,
Epstein.
but
We'll do it this time next week. All right, everybody. So if you're watching, make sure you subscribe because you're gonna want to get notified. I see people in the comments saying they love us
yeah,
together. We're trying to have real talk here, and like some of these others lives are shorter. Can't just have like casual conversation, really drill down. But yeah, thank you all for watching. So many of you have been here this whole time.
yeah, thank you.
You're awesome. This is great. They say they like the dialogue. They've subscribed. And as we said, consider becoming a paid subscriber. But if not, just you being here and engaging has been fantastic. All these comments. Look at you guys reading all this. This is awesome. Appreciate the
It's amazing.
feedback. Yeah.
I mean,
No.
inspirational. Let's do it. Cross the pond. Let's get it set up, man.
Yeah. Across the pond. Yes, thank you so much. Oh, dogs. Or I named him, but the person in the troll said, "Love you, thank you." We love
Yeah,
you too. We love you too.
love you
Thank you
too,
for being
man.
there, troll. Thank you, Allison, for your comments. Thank you, J.R. Johnson. Thank you, Hippy Dippy Me. That's a fantastic name. Thank you, Angie. Thank you, Maggie. She said she subscribed. Tracy, we see you in there. D.
Alison,
Batiste. Patricia, there's too many people to thank. Thank you all for
Rick.
commenting.
Yeah,
Chris,
thanks,
we see
guys.
you. Thank you so much. Wendy, we see you with the hearts here at the end. Thank you all. We're gonna see you next week, same time. All
Yeah,
right.
we'll
We're
be
gonna
here.
we're gonna get this done, and me and James are gonna talk more offline about what how we can bring this this grassroots collaborative cross transatlantic
I love
partnership. We're
this,
gonna create
man. Yeah,
a new we're gonna create a new NATO, but an independent journalism NATO.
yeah.
Right? An attack on
That's
one
I
of us
love
is
that.
attack on all, huh?
Love that, man. Yeah, attack on one of us is an attack on all of us, as journalists and commentators go. So you're absolutely right. Let's do it.
All right, brother. Thank you.
Thanks,
Talk
man.
next week,
All
man.
right. Take care, everyone. Cheers.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.